Okay, good evening. You gonna make me do the Marsha Fudge thing? Good evening. Welcome back. Happy New Year. Um, this is our January 2024 reparations meeting. My name is Kayla Reed. I serve as the chair of the Reparations Commission, the St. Louis City Reparations Commission. And tonight we have what we hope will a presentation and some comments that we hope will spur feedback from the audience. I'm just going to review the agenda and then going to have opening remarks from the commission. And then we'll have a presentation focused on the report. We'll take questions from the commission members, and then we'll take questions and or public comment from the audience. And then we'll announce our next meeting and we'll adjourn. Sound good? Hope it sounds good. Okay, so let's begin with opening comments from our commission members. Did you hit the Gwen? Gwen, did you hit the button? Turn it green. Is it green?
Can I just stand up and shout? My name is Gwen Moore. I'm a curator at the Missouri Historical Society studying issues of race, specifically race in St. Louis. Right now I'm working on a exhibition that looks at Mill Creek. Mill Creek was a historic black community in St. Louis that was destroyed in the name of urban renewal in 1959. 20,000 black people were displaced and got very little recompense. They were just thrown to the four quarters of St. Louis. And related to that, I've also been looking at the racial wealth gap because it is related to what happened to people in Mill Creek. And specifically because black people historically have been denied the ownership of land, which is the way you build wealth. Not only was this happened during enslavement, it happened after enslavement, and it happened with the policies of the government, local policy, federal policy, everything to prevent land ownership. So black people were not able to really, were not able to really acquire wealth and pass that wealth on. Black people are in the position that they're in as far as being deprived of home ownership, not by anything that they've done. It has nothing to do with personal responsibility. It has to do with the policies of the government, racism, and Jim Crow.
Good evening. I'm Dr. Will Ross. I'm vice chair of the commission. I guess I should also stand up so I can see everyone. Vice chair of the commission. I'm associate dean and a professor at Washington University School of Medicine. My history in St. Louis has been, over the past 3 decades, really chronicling the effects of inequities, historical segregation on the health of St. Louis, and particularly the health of African American St. Louis. We recognize the remarkable gap in life expectancy from one zip code to another, a gap that could be somewhere between 13 and 15 years, if not 18 years, if you go further out. And I'm also concerned that over the past 3 years, we've seen an even further reduction in life expectancy. A lot of that was because of COVID. But even in COVID, we simply had diminished access to care and lots of reasons why African Americans weren't able to access the care, the vaccinations and other services. And so we have to realize all these historical inequities manifest themselves in our life expectancy, our health. And so if we truly become healthier, then we have to start looking at these upstream, really systemic factors that have resulted in us being unhealthy. And I know that you all have been very active in providing us insight on what we will be doing as a commission. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Kim Franks. Apologize for the tardiness. Obligations of parenthood. But just to introduce myself, I am a local business owner, and I'm sitting on the commission as well as a licensed attorney. I just want to greet you all in the new year. Thank you all for coming out. I don't know what I missed. Have I covered it all?
Hi, everyone. My name is David Cunningham. I'm a professor and chair of sociology at Washington University. I have for many years done work on organized white supremacy, focused on the Ku Klux Klan and other groups historically, and most importantly, looked at historical violence, including violence sanctioned by governments, sanctioned by police, and how that continues to have an effect on a whole range of inequalities in communities. Really at the heart of the work that we're thinking of here is how the weight of history continues to affect our community, and really appreciate the opportunity to be talking with you all today as we think about how we're moving ahead with the report and our recommendations. So thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Reverend Kevin D. Anthony. I currently pastor Pilgrim United Church of Christ. And I just want to say thank you all for being here as we continue to navigate this work that we've been called to do. And of course, I'm honored to represent the community through this process. Thank you.
Good evening. I am Delisha George. I'm program manager at Deaconess Foundation. I am particularly interested in philanthropy's role in reparations, which I know is a big piece of it. And I'm also the secretary for the commission. Thank you.
Okay. Standing up in the computer is going to be hard, but I'm going to try. My name is, again, Kayla Reed. I serve as the chair of the commission. My day job, I'm the executive director of Action St. Louis, we're a racial justice organization that works on criminal justice, housing, and democracy issues. And so I'm interested in all three of those things as they connect to the historical inequalities of inside of our communities, and really interested in the question of how do we build Black political power. And I think one of the pathways to manifest that power is reparations. And so that's me. Wanted to give an update before we get started on the presentation. So in December of 2023, it was December where we sent the letter. We sent a letter to Mayor Jones. I did not print that letter or copies of that letter, but essentially the letter asked Mayor Jones for two things. One was an extension for this commission, a 6-month extension, in part because what we have heard from the public and continue to see in our meetings is that we have more work to do to engage Black residents specifically and St. Louis residents holistically around the conversation of reparations. And we want to do that in a way that really continues to grow the room on a monthly basis, but also is educating and informing the public on this conversation of reparations. And we need more time to write this report for it to be meaningful and robust in the ways that we've been mandated by both this administration and the public to do. We simply felt that we needed more time. The second thing that we asked for in that letter is a budget. It takes money to do most things because of capitalism. And and so we felt to produce a report to ensure that that report reaches people, to collect the stories of the public that we've been hearing in testimony, to provide that history that the Executive Order 75 mandates. We would also need some resources. We have heard back from the mayor. We were granted the 6-month extension for the commission. We are still in dialogue around the second request. So just wanted to give that as an update. So we will be, the commission, that means the extension will be from March 2024 to September of 2024. What that means for our sort of to-do around the report is that we want to produce a draft that we present to the public, get feedback on the draft, which we've long said, take the feedback, make final edits to the report to submit to the mayor in September of 2024. And so we're going to we have public meetings through March scheduled. The commission is going to take advice from both the public and dialogue amongst ourselves on whether we'll continue to have monthly meetings past the 1 month mark, or will we focus exclusively on writing the report, having one summer meeting, and then a release meeting in the fall? We've not decided either of those things. Those are just ideas that have been floating around. We have planning meetings that are virtual the 2 weeks before any in-person meeting. And so if you are interested in joining those, please do. You can stream them on YouTube, but you can also join them via Zoom. And that's always on the city's website on the Reparations Commission page. I think that's everything I wrote down for updates. Okay. So today we wanted to we're moving quickly. We wanted to go into we wanted to give a presentation today that really starts to move us into a conversation about what is going to be in the report. And so I'm going to give the presentation, and I feel nervous about it, but just be with me. But we also are going to then have public comment. My hope is that public comment after this report responds to this proposal, because it is still a proposal. This is the people's report on reparations. So we want to hear directly back from you on this presentation. If we're headed in the right direction, if there are things that we're missing, if there are other considerations. What is not in this presentation are the recommendations. It is the shape of the report itself. So let's get started. So the mandate, the reparations mandate, Executive Order 75, really requires us to do three things. One is assess the history of slavery, segregation, and other race-based harms in the city of St. Louis. Two is to explore the present-day manifestations of that history. And three is to recommend a proposal to begin preparing the harms that have been inflicted. Thank you. I'm gonna pause. We have slides printed for you all to follow along. So I'm gonna let the team at Action St. Louis, thank you, Action, pass those out. We only have 50 copies. Well, 50 minus the commission, so 40 copies. Good. Okay, everyone got a copy? We're on slide 2. So 2, explore the present day manifestations of that history. And then 3, recommend a proposal to begin repairing the harms that have been inflicted. So really 3 things that this report needs to go through. And so in defining reparations in Executive Order 75, we are given a parameter from the National Coalition of Blacks for Reparations in America, or in COBRA. And they define reparations as a process of repairing, healing, and restoring a people injured because of their group identity and in violation of their fundamental human rights by governments, corporations, institutions, and families. So that definition is inside of Executive Order 75 and serves as sort of a foundation of what we're thinking about as we define reparations. The other framework that this commission is looking at is the United Nations framework on reparations. And so there are 5 sort of satisfactory sections of this. The first is cessation, assurance, and guarantees of non-repetition. That definition is there. Under international law, a state responsible for wrongfully injuring a people under obligation to cease the act if it is continuing, and B, offer appropriate assurances and guarantees of non-repetition. Restitution and repatriation. Restitution means to reestablish the situation which existed before the wrongful act was committed. Changes traced to the wrongful act are reversed through restoration of freedom, recognition of humanity, identity, culture, repatriation, livelihood, citizenship, legal standing, and wealth to the extent that can be. And if they cannot, restitution is completed by compensation. The third is compensation. The injuring state, institution, or individual is obligated to compensate for the damage. If damage is not made good by restitution, compensation is required for any financial accessible damage suffered to the extent appropriate and proportional to the gravity of the violation and circumstances. The fourth is satisfaction. So satisfaction is a part of the full reparations under international law for moral damage, such as emotional injury, mental suffering, and injury to reputation. In some instances where cessation, restitution, and compensation do not bring full repair, satisfaction is also needed. Apology falls under the reparative category of satisfaction. And the final qualification is rehabilitation. Rehabilitation shall be provided to include legal, medical, psychological, and other care and services. So we are looking at both of those definitions and both of those sort of frameworks to shape both the histories and stories that we are telling and also the recommendations that, that will follow. So for the report, I I'm missing a slide. So the commission has broken itself into two working groups. The two working groups really are dividing the labor of the Reparations Commission to ensure that we check off those three mandates inside of Executive Order 75. The first working group is the report working group, which consists of Dr. Ross, Professor Cunningham, and myself. Our mandate is to facilitate the writing of the report by bringing in issue experts, writers, researchers to produce that final report. The second working group is the Community Engagement Working Group, which is Delisha, Reverend Anthony, William, who's not here, and Gwen. And they are charged with ensuring that there's a robust community outreach program and that we are collecting anecdotes, individual narratives to help shape the report. So when we talk about, for example, housing, we want to also tell you what that materially has created for a family that was, say, denied a mortgage loan. So we're both trying to ensure the report gives you sort of this structural analysis and historical lens, but also gives tangible human account for what happened and the consequences of these policies. So the report overview, that's the slide that's not in there, but it should have been. The report overview. So we are charged with the report, and what we've done, we've read a lot of reports. We've read some of California's report, we've read Evanston's report, we've read other cities' reports. There are lots of cities studying reparations, and what we sort of agreed on is that the reports itself needs to be both thorough but accessible. And so what we want to produce, our goal, and again, this is proposed, is to produce a 100-page final report. It's a lot of pages, but it's also not a lot of pages to tell a lot of history. What that report will include is Executive Order 75. We're going to define reparations, explain the work of the commission, the journey that we've gone on over the last 10 months and the next 7, a land acknowledgement. We're going to talk about enslavement in this region and the impacts of that. And then there'll be issues that have overviews, recommendations, and proposed next steps. Each issue section of the report will focus on a few things: history on the issue in St. Louis, personal anecdotes and narrative, issue-related recommendations, and sources for further learning. So we don't really want to recreate the wheel. There are lots of histories and facts and stories and lots of books and other readings and other mediums of information that we want to resource folks to do further learning. But we don't really want to rewrite something that's already been written. We want to lean on that information to help shape the report and then also make sure folks know where they can continue to learn more about these issues. Okay, so the proposed issues that will be in the report. Again, the key word here is proposed. We want to hear feedback from you all on what needs to be added, what's missing, or affirmation if it sounds like we're headed in the right direction. We take it all. So proposed issues are housing. The second is neighborhood and built environment. The third is education. The fourth is public health. The fifth is jobs and economy. And then the last is state violence. Again, each of these issues will have history on the issue in St. Louis, personal anecdotes and narratives, issue-related recommendations, and sources for further learning. So let's talk about housing. So the housing section of the reparations report, this is not all it will include. These are sort of ideations and specific examples of what will be in that history and narrative portion. So the first thing is the history and impact of racial covenants on Black residents. The second is redlining and its impact on property values and home ownership rates. And then the third is the resulting wealth disparities between Black and white residents. So these are examples of what will be in there, not the totality of what will be in there, just guideposts along the way. This map is from a study done on mortgage lending in the St. Louis region. And the purple dots, there's a key at the bottom, but the purple dots actually stand for home purchase loans per 100 houses from 2012 to 2014. As you'll see on the map, South City, there are loans. Throughout the county, there are loans, but there is a desert of loans. There is a desert on the northern part of the city and parts of North County, where very few loans, less than 4 and 100 loans were issued in those census tracts from 2012 to 2014. So we're going to be looking at that data, other data like it, to help continue to tell the story of the history of housing and make recommendations directly responding to some of the blatant inequality that we see. The second issue is neighborhood and built environment. So what we mean by neighborhood, and some of this is like, if you've been at the commission's meetings, I hope this sounds familiar because we've done monthly meetings on these topics in more depth. So this is very much informed by presenters like Gwen Moore, like Dr. Ross, like Professor Cunningham, Walter Johnson, et cetera, Jeff Ward. And so this is around neighborhood and built environment. And so examples of what will be in that section of the report are the history of displaced and destroyed communities like Mill Creek Valley, the impact of blighting on historically Black neighborhoods, and then the present-day consequences of policies such as urban renewal. This map is from 1947. It's one of the first, it's a part of the city planning process that happened in 1947. The city hasn't had a robust planning process since 1947, but we have a charter commission that's thinking through those things critically. And in red are the proposed blighted neighborhoods. Those are North City neighborhoods, early South City neighborhoods, predominantly Black neighborhoods. If we were to lay race over this map, you'd see high correlation between Black neighborhoods and proposed blighted neighborhoods. And so we want to talk about that history, the present day consequences of that, and then make recommendations around this issue. The third issue is education. So I'll start with the map. We're turning the page. The map is, all the dots represent a school building in the city of St. Louis. The green dots represent open schools, the red dots represent vacant buildings, and the blue dots are pending, so potentially to be closed. I often say to my team at Action, every map is the same map in St. Louis. So the concentration of school closures has been in North City. The concentration of vacant buildings of vacant school buildings or in North City, where some buildings that have been closed, say, in the Central Corridor have been transformed into housing or other sorts of sites. North City schools are still vacant for the majority reason. And the impact that this has had. So what we want to talk about in this section is the history and impact of school segregation. So we know that St. Louis as a region is deeply impacted by a term, suburbanization. So people fleeing the city core, moving to the county, the different districts that we have. You go to New York, there's the New York United School, is something like that, New York United School District. It's one school district. Here we have we have to ask what high school you went to because we have too many districts. And so we want to talk about the impact of school segregation. We want to talk about school funding and closures. And then we want to talk about present day disparities in education. So that's what this section is going to focus on as a foundation. Of course, there'll be more information as the issue experts begin to write it. The next issue is public health. This is a picture of Homer G. Phillips Hospital. This section is going to focus on racial disparities in public health, including life expectancies, infant mortality, and other adverse health outcomes. That ranges from asthma rates, exposure to lead, just so many different adverse health outcomes. And then we also want to focus on lack of access to health care itself, including hospital closures. And we know that that disparately impacts Black residents in the northern half of the city as well. Again, not exhaustive of everything that'll be in that section, but really what the report working group wanted to start as a foundation in that issue area. And then jobs and economy, that's a picture of the arch as it was being built. We want to focus on unequal consideration given to Black businesses for bids and contracts. We've heard that through public testimony at multiple reparations meetings, and then discriminatory access to employment opportunities and fair wages as a foundation. And then the last issue is state violence. So let's start with the map. The map is from 1969 to 1981. It was compiled by ACLU. Dots represent police shooting incidents. Darker shades on the map represent a greater concentration of Black residents. And so you'll see that, once again, different data, same map, where there's hyper concentration in the northern half of the city from 1969 to 1981. That does not include the data after 1981 to present. And what we want to look at in this section are racial disparities in police violence in St. Louis and policies that have targeted and criminalized Black residents, resulting in economic extraction from our communities and high incarceration rates as a present day reality. So yeah, that's the last slide. I think that wasn't 20 minutes at all. But what we hope is that in public comment, first we're going to let commission sort of respond to this transparently. This is first view for the community engagement working group, so would love to hear feedback from you all as the report working group has been working on this. And then we're going to open it up to the public for responses to this presentation or general comments that you may have. But we'd really like to know, even in your other comments, does this feel right? What is missing? And we'll be taking notes on that. So let's start from this side, Delisha, and we'll go public comments down the row. Commissioner comments.
Thank you. So the first thing that comes to mind for me in the current setup is there's so much around the history and the impact, but also I think be intentional around what we propose as a solution in this same section. So that's kind of not just, this is everything that's wrong. How can we turn that around? I think to see that contrast would be helpful within the report section.
Um, One of the things that I would like to see is on one of the slides we had the dated time period that we were looking at, if we could do more around some of the other issues so that people can be clear on how we've dated our analysis and work.
I think being part of this working group, I certainly don't have a question for Kayla directly, but just thinking about and being really curious about what you all will be saying. We have identified these 6 issue areas, and identifying these areas is really important in the sense that we want to be comprehensive. We want to be reflective of the issues that are impacting people and communities. But these decisions are really weighty because we identify 6, and there's 50 others that aren't included in that. And we've been really thinking of these as umbrellas. Really want to make sure before we get too far down the road that we're not missing an umbrella. There's something that's really pivotal in understanding these kinds of issues. And so we really appreciate your attention to where gaps seem to be, as well as to how we might conceive of the breadth of each of these umbrellas.
Is Alderman Terry Kennedy still in the room? So I mentioned him because in 2000, I can't recall the time, 8 or 9, Alderman Kennedy and I co-chaired a report on North St. Louis healthcare issues in North St. Louis. And when we finished the report, it was just like most other reports. It was dense, a lot of data, a lot of words. And it just didn't really speak with the passion that we wanted it to speak. And so these issue overviews really reflect what we've heard from you. I mean, we just want to reiterate, we were listening. We captured that information. What could actually add even more of a passion are quotes. We've talked about using narratives. We listened to you. We wrote notes. And we have everything recorded. But we really we want to tease out those comments from you and all those who participated, and really take just 1 or 2 comments that really kind of summarizes each issue. Just have that narrative, have that quote speak for the entire issue. It's issue we haven't talked about here yet, but as I'm watching the report, as I'm listening to the report, I think that really would amplify even more so what we're trying to do with the overviews.
As I look at this report, the manifestations, there's a part here that says explore the present day manifestations of that history, and it kind of like runs into the thing because there's also a part here where it talks about cessation, assurance, and guarantees of non-repetition. So cessation means stop what you're doing now. It's not something that just happened in the past, but there are things that are showing up now. So as we're putting the report together, we have to be mindful of not that this isn't stuff that happened in the past that we're trying to address, but there are things that are showing up right now, and those things need to be called out and named. In the report, there are people that are in positions of policy, power, and influence in our local, in our civic, our government, our educational, and our health agencies that have the power to stop right now. So I think that we need to sit on that a little bit more in this report to just make sure that we flesh that out. I see a little bit of it happening, but that's kind of the thing that stands out to me, like with housing, for example. The work that's going into how do we deal with TIFs and tax abatements. That's work that can be done now. That's a current and ongoing policy, not a policy of the past. So yeah, that's just my initial reaction.
Well, I think there's an advantage to going last in that, first of all, I want to say that I think that I agree with everything that my fellow commissioners have said. I think Kayla packed a lot of information into this document, and I think I really don't have anything to add to that, so I would like to cede my time to the audience.
Yeah, thank you, commissioners, for that feedback. Yeah, so we would like to take time to open it up for public comment on anything, but we also ask that again, responses to this as a proposal. You are our board in that regard, so we seek your approval to move forward. So yeah, with that, just please step up to the mic, and Reverend Anthony, as always, is the timekeeper. I'll let him give you the rules.
So as you come to the microphone to speak, you have 3 minutes to give your comments. I know that's not a lot for many, but our goal is to make sure that as many of you have the opportunity to share your thoughts and reflections on the report that has been given, and maybe even comments from prior sessions, if you so desire. And so when you see me wave this in the air or just lift it up, make sure everybody see that. You know that your 3 minutes has expired. And when you come, we ask that you give your name and what area of St. Louis you reside in. Thank you. You may come first.
Of St. Louis, so they're taking away. They've developed in North Grand, a Natural Bridge, and North Florissant, and they had a meeting yesterday. I didn't know about it till today. So, what we're going to do about they still taking away neighborhood people who lives in the housing? What can we do? What we supposed to do if you're still taking away? And they're doing it under the cover. They're doing sneaky stuff. And that's not right. That's not being fair to us in the neighborhood. I don't think y'all knew about it. Did y'all know about the meeting yesterday? See? Nobody don't know. And that's sad. We people just like anybody else. We human. We got feelings, we got everything. But I'm just saying, we didn't know about this, so I'm done what I have to say. We always try to jump through hoops. We shouldn't have to jump through hoops. I'm not a dog.
Thank you.
Hello, can you hear me? Can you hear me good? Yeah. My name is Michael Gregory. Hail from Ferguson, Missouri. I currently work in the 13th Ward, and I was going to discuss the actual presentation. So first off, the NCOBRA definition is very broad, and we need something specifically for Black Americans. The government that's sanctioning the harms can't rehabilitate the people. They must pay the debt so that we can rehabilitate ourselves. Lineage-based cash payments is within both definitions mentioned, and is the most effective method. Lineage-based cash payments is how the people who are owed reparations define reparations. So with that being said, I just want to say that I'm very pleased that we got an extension so we can cover this, and I'm very pleased that we also have a lot of talks with other commissions, and I'm also in contact with other commissions like Detroit, Evanston also. And I just want to let you know that the main objective is reparations for Black Americans, and it has to have a cash payment component, just like the Japanese Americans. This book, I've been talking about it for months. Japanese Americans, from relocation to redress. inside their reparations, they received cash. Everything else was also addressed, but there was also a component, cash payments. If the cash payments isn't in there, it cannot be considered true reparations. Thank you.
Thank you.
How y'all doing, and Happy New Year. My name is Nathan Camden. I'm from Jennings. Me and my business partner and I, we own a nonprofit organization that works with local artists and businesses to create performance opportunities and then turn that into community wellness programs through our profits. Speaking specifically to the report, does it, as far as the health, address the environmental effects on communities?
So yes, well, we haven't actually had that level of detail, granularity, but it has to affect the environment.
Okay.
We're clearly aware of what's happening with environmental waste, dump sites, North County, even parts of North City. We're all keenly aware of that, and that there's ongoing discussion but no action in terms of how do we actually do cleanup of these toxic waste sites, which should come under the purview of the government, of the federal government. But we know these sites have been basically ignored for decades. So we cannot talk about the health of St. Louisans and Black St. Louisans without talking about environmental hazards that actually persist to this day.
And then I'll just wrap these 2 points up. And again, in the health, outlining education as far as nutrition for the community and the food access and food scarcity. And then furthering education into when we grow into adults or those who have been previously affected, education in law or general health or whatever it may be. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I say one more thing? Why are we so divided? I don't understand that. When you pass Delmore and Situation, it's clean, and then you go north side where I stay, it's like, okay, it's clean in Situation, that's heaven. When I get to my side, it's hell. So I really don't like living in hell, okay? That's not right. So why is we so divided? I don't understand that. We live in the same city and everything is just like a walk away or a bus way or a driveway. Ain't nothing different. It just, I don't understand why it's so different. Why is, I'm not getting it. I'm really not getting it. Because we human just like everybody else in this world. We are human. We human people. I got a heart, you got a heart. Your blood runs through everything. So what is different? I don't understand. I don't understand. All this time, I'll be 65 this year, and we still going the same shit. Excuse my language. We still going the same stuff over and over again. Just like y'all said, it's a wheel. We still doing the same wheel over and over again. It don't make no sense to me. It don't. Make some sense. Make some sense. Stop doing stuff undercover.
My name is Malika Horn. I live in the Central West End. And I guess I'm just going to follow up on some of the other sentiments that have been expressed. And then the lady here, is it Ms. Franks? Ms. Franks, when she talked about the past, is continuing. Recently on the news, Webster Grove's residents found out some of them still have restrictive covenants in their mortgages. So they're asking all the residents to relook at their mortgages. So that might explain why Webster Groves is so white, as opposed to maybe University City. So some of these past racism, these practices have continued. So we will have the checks, hopefully, in cash, but at the same time, we're still confronted with a lot of the problems that are continue to to funnel and drain our cash back out as soon as we get it if we're not extremely careful. Then I thought about Alex Haley. He said one of the biggest impacts on African American culture was family discontinuity. And we know that that has seriously weakened our culture, our community. Already talked about the restrictive covenants and redlining and all of that. So will we continue to examine some of these policies and practices, some of these ordinances or whatever they are, to continue to make sure that, you know, money can heal and solve a lot, but if we're not careful, we might be in the same boat later on. So I hope I've been clear about, you know, recommending maybe to the mayor that the whole system needs to be examined.
Thank you for your comments.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Usman Gay. I live in Central West End, and I have the pleasure of working in North St. Louis at the oldest Black museum in St. Louis, the Griot Museum of Black History. I appreciate the presentation that was given today. I think a lot of the points that were made, particularly considering present-day manifestations, are very important. I'd be curious to know how the RAM settlement in particular plays a part in this. That is a big infusion of cash into the city, and we know that a lot of the infrastructure that's been developed downtown is not always considering Black and brown bodies, and as we are considering how the city is going to spend that money, I think reparations does play a part in that, especially around the theme of cessation. I know with housing, there was a conversation around Mill Creek, but even more presently, there are ample examples of how the federal government used Pruitt-Igoe as a way to practice urban warfare, affecting children, women, and families that were living there. And those histories are being erased, especially we're seeing today still by the federal government, and the use of eminent domain to expand into North City for the NGA West project. With the term of neighborhood and built environment, I'd be curious to see if there is any consideration for access to equitable green space in St. Louis, as well as functional public transport, considering the history of public transport in the city. We had a fantastic streetcar system that is no longer in use, and both buses and light rail play a way in which people are able to access, navigate, and thrive in a city. And as we know, we are in a very car-dependent society, but the fact of the matter is owning a car is a very high investment. Outside of that, with education, I'd be curious to see how the report is able to also fold in how the educational system might be able to better prepare students to learn about financial security, financial literacy, and financial self-sufficiency, because having grown up in the United States, I am aware how many times they're not telling us how to save up for a house, how to save up for a family, and how to be able to build businesses in our communities. And very curious as to how, as you're considering jobs and economy, do current programs are in consideration for that. I know Gateway South is a development that is currently in talks, and as well as NGA West, because when we talk about reparations and also moving forward to create sustainable economic promises, part of that consideration is when we're going into communities and creating more space for opportunity, how are we not only trying to bring in new voices, new blood into communities, but also being able to appreciate and offer support to the people that have continued to make the choice of living in North St. Louis. There's more that I could talk about, but I think those are my main points tonight. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
I guess I can go ahead and speak it out. So again, my name is Nathan, and like I said, I'm the founder of Business Studio. That's my last 15 years in a heavy market research of the entire St. Louis area and the 20 counties. Because we're a nonprofit, one of our main focuses was on our community and how to not just fix the issues short term, but long term down the line as well. Just heard speaking on adult education programs. That's something that that we've heavily focused on, creating those green spaces, like he was talking about, places where the community has a safe space to actually go out, enjoy themselves, maybe have a piece of free fruit because they find it on a tree somewhere, and creating a healthier sense of environment overall. However, we propose this to some of the wrong people in our community, and it cost all of us over billions of dollars after it's all been calculated. That's billions of dollars that are exiting our economy, and that's going to places that don't affect us at all but have an immediate impact on the way that we live our lives. So just to say that I think that working closer together, I definitely would like to stay in touch with you guys and foster a greater sense of community between us. So, thank you.
Thank you. Are there others?
Hi, good evening, everyone. Good to see you all. I'll be brief. My name is Blake Strode. I am a resident of Skinker de Bolivar. I also am Executive Director of Arch City Defenders. And I just wanted to make 2 points that haven't come up yet. One, in response to the update, which I really appreciated, about the correspondence with the mayor. I think it's very helpful to have extra time for this commission, and am encouraged about the additional engagement that's going to allow. I am curious. I am someone who certainly thinks this commission needs resources. I want to thank all of you for the time you're putting in. I know this is a important role that you're playing, and not an easy one. And there's a lot of expectation, and there's a lot of community input that you're trying to wrestle with, a lot of data, a lot of research. And so I would be curious to hear if now or at any point if there's something that the community can do to support the requests that you all have made to bring resources to the commission, because I do think that that's going to materially impact what's possible here in terms of engagement by this commission. The second thing that I wanted to say is just, given the breadth of, I haven't been at all of the meetings, I've been in a number of them and watched most, and the wide breadth of issues that have been brought to the fore make for a real challenge for any report, and I appreciate the desire to keep this one digestible. And given that, I want to appreciate the structure that is proposed here in terms of moving from enslavement of Black people in this region through to present day, and trying to understand all of the various ways in which Black people have been impacted. I think that's a very difficult thing to do. I'm sure you could have made 10 other choices, and maybe there can be some iteration around this. I especially appreciate the state violence, the focus on state violence, which has so many impacts on Black families in this region, and would just maybe offer that part of state violence, to someone made this remark a minute ago, but family regulation within state violence has had so much devastation on Black families in this region. And I'm thinking about a recent conversation with one of my colleagues, which is maybe why that's in my head. But I really would think about the family regulation system as something else that we have to contend with in terms of its historical impact. So thank you again.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Catherine Fitterson. I live in U City, but I do a lot of work in North City. I just wanted to know if there was space in the public health section where we can really speak about just the effects of racism and white supremacy, and what it has and how it plays into the health of Black people just every day. I mean, there have been a lot of studies lately that have shown, how it contributes to, how it adversely affects our health when it comes, our blood pressure, just our stress levels, and how that plays into, our life expectancy, just the burden of living in a society with the racism and white supremacy. So I just want to see if that could be included as well.
Yeah, let me just comment. Thank you for that comment. The answer is yes. We have to address trauma in the community and how chronic trauma actually results in these sort of health issues, heart disease, high blood pressure, cancer, strokes. There's, again, ample scientific evidence showing that correlation between chronic stress, increasing cortisol levels in the body, and long-term disease. And so, yes, that has to be explicitly called out. Thank you for making that statement.
Okay.
Thank you for that. We typically end our meeting with just closing comments from the commission, but just want to check to make sure we heard everyone who wanted to speak. Any burning thinkers, thoughts? You're welcome. Just want to give that pastoral pause, just in case there's one more anecdote out there. Okay. So just closing comments from the commission, responses to what we've heard, and then we'll talk about the next meeting, which I want to make sure we spend some time discussing. We started that way last time, so I'll put you first this time, Ms. Gwen.
I can't use that going fast as an excuse anymore. No, I just want to thank you for coming. These meetings, we always walk away knowing a lot more than when we walked in. Comments are always thoughtful, and they're really helping us in our work. So I just want to thank you, and I hope you keep coming and keep making your voices heard, because that helps us.
Just want to thank everybody for their comments. Is Mr. Gregory still in the room? I always appreciate his insights and tell him he should go to law school. Really like the point that he made about the specificity of the language here. So that's kind of something that stood out to me as, as a lawyer. When you look at the mandate, it does say something about, it says other race-based harms. It doesn't say what race. So that was really interesting to me. And I look forward to seeing you all at the next meeting. Hope you all will continue to stay engaged.
Thank you again for all the great comments, and obviously always on point. I just want to reiterate what we said several months ago about this commission. We were impaneled by the mayor as community representatives, representing all of us. We have no other skin in the game other than really speaking truth to power. And we have every intention of fulfilling that. One of the things that we need from you, someone asked this question, what can the community do for the commission? You need to recognize that the things that we've talked about will require resources. Someone mentioned the RAM settlement and others. And so there's a current discussion, opportunity for everyone to weigh in on how to use that money. And everyone should weigh in on how to use that money, and everyone should call their friends and say, you please weigh in on how to use that money, because we're giving you a format. We're giving you a sense of what we've heard about what are the pressing issues. And so now we know what the pressing issues are. We know that there are resources out there, and we now need to galvanize ourselves to really connect those resources with the needs of the community. So please go out and talk about those resources. Thank you.
Yeah, I would just mainly reiterate what my fellow commissioners have been saying, and first to thank you all, and also what Dr. Ross is just saying here about, I mean, our report and our recommendations are really only going to be as strong as the force of the community behind them in terms of how seriously they're taken and how urgently they're conceived. And so we appreciate all that you can do along those lines to kind of bolster the import of what we're saying. And also to just say that, you know, one of the inspirations for tonight's agenda to have Kayla's important presentation here and thinking in very precise ways about what this report will look like really came out of a lot of the discussion in our November public meeting, where people were really asking about these questions in very specific ways. And so, you know, it's another instance of our work really being directly informed by what seems most important at this stage in the process from you. So we appreciate that.
Go out. I was just told that that survey I just referenced goes out on Friday.
Yeah, Friday's the last day.
Friday's the last day.
Yeah, the voting for that RAM settlement survey.
So y'all jump on that.
And on Friday. Yeah, so one, just want to thank you all for coming. Two, I think, you know, I said I was nervous about the presentation, mostly because I wanted to hear feedback about, you know, like the three of us can sit in the room and ideate about a lot of things, but I think what we are hopeful for is continued responsiveness to this proposal as it moves itself into a report draft. I want to acknowledge, like, hear the feedback on the definitions. I think it is really important that in the public health, and I do think, again, sort of the examples that we gave today were just those sort of examples. I think but what we are trying to do is concisely tell a whole lot of history and a lot of disparities and a lot of impact in a few pages. But I especially wanted to note that the public health section, there was a lot of sort of feedback on that, from the impact of trauma and stress to food access and nutrition to the environmental impacts of, you know, zoning regulations and present day manifestations of that. That we see in sort of lead levels and asthma levels and things like that. So I take that, and I think, you know, what I am hopeful for around support is, you know, I'm an organizer. I like to call myself that, and what I think people need to feel in all moments is pressure, and then to hear that the commission isn't the only voices in the room that know that it will take resources and capacity to get this report done. And I think we are, the report working group, we meet weekly, and then we have our public meetings twice a month. And so there is a lot of capacity that goes into this work, and to materialize, to move us to, from slides that we worked on over the last week to a draft report. We're going to have to bring in folks to help write that. You know, it won't be me that writes a full reparations report. And it can't be all of us even together across the expertise that's on this panel. So we will need, you know, just additional support in that way. But I'm encouraged by the responses tonight, deeply grateful for the continued presence in this conversation. I think the other ask is that, you know, we try to put out notification for these meetings. If you could help share those and amplify those, whatever you need to do that, we want to do it. We send it out in email. We make phone calls every month. We do some canvassing, but we really want this conversation to penetrate the communities that are most impacted by these issues. And so we could continue to support in that. Thank you.
Yeah, I want to really just follow up on your comments, because I was thinking the same thing as it relates to the community giving push and lean in heavily around offering support. The recommendations is one thing, but your voice, your input, and your leaning in really gives the report the power. From the beginning, we've always talked about being intentional and including your stories, your narratives. What do you think inside the report? Because when people see that and see your action in the community around, that to me creates movement. And so I'm glad that you're here. I ask that you continue to come and be a part of this, because how you input yourself will absolutely make the difference, whether it's around Rams money or whatever that is, right? Your presence, the power really comes from you in that form. Thank you.
Excuse me. I also say thank you for coming out, and thank you for those that push on us. The November meeting was a turning point for us. So if you were there, trust and believe we heard you. We felt you, more importantly. To the person who said, I think over here, you said you want to foster a greater sense of community. And I hope that that is one of the outcomes. I really do, because we sit up here as the commission, but we are St. Louis residents. We may be neighbors with some of you. You know, we may cross paths in so many ways, but please understand that we are a community. So my hope is that you do see yourselves in this report and know that it is a collective voice that we are hoping to gather to bring forth to our city administration to say, okay, here's what we're putting in front of you based on what we are hearing directly from the community. So it's community voice. This is all community that we are hoping that is represented in this report. So please know that we are accessible to you all. We hear you. We're here for this very reason. And again, thank you for coming out. And I hope you continue to come out. And to that point, the next meeting is February 26th, which is a Monday, and it will be at Deaconess Foundation. And that meeting will start at 6 p.m.
Yeah, and to speak to that meeting, so one of the reasons we had this meeting at City Hall is because the folks who make the decisions around these things are right down the hall. So today we've seen the chief of staff to the mayor, we've seen the city clerk to the board of aldermen. You know, we've seen people who work for the president of the board of aldermen are here. Sorry, Christine, I forgot your title. There is an alderwoman in the audience this meeting. So sometimes, you just got to be in the right place and space. Next time we're not going to be at City Hall, but the mayor of this city will be at Deaconess for this next meeting. So there's been a lot of questions around, elected officials showing up, the presence of elected officials. Well, Mayor Jones is presenting at the next reparations meeting, which is why it's on a Monday, because we had to work around her schedule. But it's February 26th, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. It's never to 8 p.m., like 7:30 p.m. at the Deaconess Center for Child Wellbeing, 1000 North Vandervander. So please, we will be releasing a flyer on the Action St. Louis page. It's on the city website. Please share it. We would love to make sure the mayor knows that this conversation is still very important to the community, and hear her remarks on this project. Any other announcements? Okay. Then we're going to close this meeting and again say thank you so much for joining us on this Wednesday evening.